All right. Hi, Abigail. I am so elated to have you here with us today. Thank you so much for taking the time to meet with us and to interview with us here at the Daily Moth. I want to get to know you a little bit better. So let's go ahead and let's have you introduce yourself and where are you from?
Yeah, so hi everyone. So my name's Abigail. If you're not aware, I went on the show The Bachelor. And then I am originally from Oregon. I grew up in Salem and then I lived in Portland for a few years. And then I actually just made the big move out to New York about a month ago. So it's a big change, but that's just a little bit about me. And then I'm sure we'll get into it.
So I personally have this burning question. I really want to ask you this. I am so excited to be asking you this. How was your communication and interaction in the house with the other ladies? Was it something that was easily tracked? Were you able to facilitate communication? Did you feel involved? Was it easy for you to follow? That is my burning question.
Yeah, so at the beginning, it was a little bit harder. There was, I think, 30, 28, 30 of us in the house at the very beginning. And it would be hard sometimes when we would be sitting on the couches with all of us and we'd be talking about maybe things happening in the house or what we think is going to happen. I wasn't the most vocal just because I would kind of have to figure out where the voice was coming from. And then by the time I figured that out, the next person was talking. So that was a little bit harder, but I will say all the women in the house were incredible. I mean, they had just met me a few days prior and they were so willing to repeat things. And if I just like nudge somebody next to me, I say, "Oh, who are we talking about?" or "What did they say?" They always repeated, things from me. And that's just kind of the biggest form of acceptance that you can give me in a group setting. But then it definitely got easier, as less girls were in the house, like meal times, there was less of us sitting at a table. Um, but then I also just kind of tell myself too, maybe it's a blessing in disguise that I didn't always hear everything or voice an opinion on a lot of things just because there was a lot of drama in the house. And so that's a big part of the reason why I was able to stay out of it, just because I didn't always follow right away, the things that were going on.
We've pawned over. So you've been on the Bachelor show, and on your Instagram story, you mentioned that you weren't a member of capital D deaf community. You mentioned that on your
Mhm.
Instagram story. So just out of curiosity, what was your experience with the deaf community? I mean, if you could share an experience that you had, what would that be?
Yeah, so I think the biggest thing that I wanted to make sure when I was going on the show and I was saying, I'm deaf, I just really wanted to respect the deaf community with a capital D because I didn't want them to feel like and I'm trying to represent all types of hearing loss because I feel like that undermines a lot of what goes into the deaf community. And so that's why I just wanted to say, I am deaf, but at the same time, I don't use sign language. There's all these different forms of hearing loss, and here's what I represent. I represent having a cochlear implant, but being able to communicate vocally. But that's not going to be the case for somebody that's in the deaf community. So I just wanted to make sure that I wasn't falsely representing, the deaf community. In terms of my experience, and the reason I wanted to be really careful on how, kind of my take on if I'm a member or not, was in high school. I had a sign language class, and the teacher was deaf. And he was a great teacher, learned a lot, but he was very vocal about how cochlear implants are not a good thing. It's tearing the deaf community apart, and he's just very vocal about it. And I'm not someone that gets offended easily. I just understood that's just his, perspective on life, and that's not something that I should take personally. But I also knew that he's not the only person that feels that way. And so that's why I just wanted to make sure that when I'm talking about my experiences, it's, my experience, but it's not going to be the same for everybody in the deaf community as well.
Yeah. Would you be interested in taking up more classes? Maybe learning more sign language down the road?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think it's always fun just to like pick up some.
Yes, agreed. Again, thank you so much for your time. And here at the Daily Moth, we wish you the best of luck with your dating journey and adventures and your new life in New York City.
Thank you guys.